What's up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Lawyer You Know. And in case you couldn't tell, I am out of town. I'm at my place in Tallahassee. Going to hang with John for a few days. We've got some fun things planned. We're going to go and see this NCAA tournament that Florida State is hosting. But we can't miss the Karen Reed coverage. So that's why we're here from the condo telling you about day 14. It was an uncomfortable cross for Yuri Buchanan at multiple points today. And then Hank Brennan had a very specific strategy that he planned and very clearly prepared Yuri Buchanan for on redirect. And then we'll see what Jackson decided to do with Recross. All in today's video. Answer your questions. Hit that like button. Here we go. All right. So we start today similar to how we ended last week, where we hung out, talked about it over the weekend. And Alan Jackson was taking his time and he was methodically going through all of the issues and all of the facts he wanted to get out with Yuri Buchanan. And a lot of that was things that may have been saved for Brian Higgins or Michael Proctor if those people were going to be called. Even some of the third-party culprit stuff between Albert and Higgins came out during Yuri Buchanan's cross, because what I think the defense is doing is, if I was a judge, I would give them more leeway crossing Yuri Buchanan if I didn't think they were going to call Proctor. So I think in the judge's mind, they're allowing them to get more out here. Now, if they call Proctor later, great. If the defense calls Proctor, great. They can get more out. It doesn't mean that they're going to be limited just because they asked Yuri Buchanan. But the prosecution was given a wide leeway of what Buchanan can testify to, because he's now the supervisor to the don't call him the lead investigator on the case. So it was very clear that he was being used for a specific purpose. I am going to play part of this, and you guys can tell me if there's an echo, because obviously I have a mobile setup here. And if there is an echo, I can put in some AirPods. But at the beginning of the day, Brennan did ask basically that the defense not be allowed to ask questions about stuff Yuri Buchanan doesn't know, that they have no evidence of, that he didn't hear, that he didn't see, that he shouldn't be able to testify to. And I think that's a very legitimate objection. I think that's totally appropriate. And I think that his testimony should be limited to that. Problem is, the reason the defense needs to ask him all of these things is because the Commonwealth asked him about so many things he did not do, see, or hear. Now, there were some objections, there were some limitations, but he was able to testify to way more than he would have been if Michael Proctor was going to be called. And that's why it's kind of an unfair objection by the Commonwealth. But because the objection was made, legally speaking, they did a lot of argument up at sidebar, so I don't know what the judge ended up determining. I didn't notice a difference in the cross, but I understand why the judge would want to limit what Yuri Buchanan kind of was a witness to before he testifies to it. We're going to get into whether or not he remembers certain things, especially when we get to redirect. Like, what this guy's memory on certain things should really tell the jury a lot about his credibility when it comes to what he remembered on cross-examination. So we're going to highlight that more even more when we get to redirect. So we get to the cross, right? We're back to the cross. The snowplow driver, they talked about, you interviewed him. He didn't see the forward edge at 3:30. Sorry, at 2:30 a.m. He did see it at 3:30 a.m. Alberts have a forward edge. He basically said, yes, that's what he remembers. But on redirect, he basically said he didn't find him too credible. The ring camera, there's no evidence Reed deleted it or edited it. But there is evidence that somebody opened up the Ring app on John O'Keefe's phone and theoretically could have altered the ring footage from John O'Keefe's phone, which I thought was pretty interesting. And he had to show him Proctor's report, which is gospel to Yuri Buchanan. He asked him about the fact that Yuri Buchanan said he saw bruising, and Yuri Buchanan used a lot of words in the English language to explain how blood pools after the fact. I thought that was pretty telling to any jurors who remember that he was just asking for a dictionary to define theory just a couple days ago. That's a problem for me. Just again, when we're judging somebody's credibility, which is what jurors do, there are instructions that they have to judge the credibility of witnesses. And then we are going to get to some of the problems in some of Proctor's reports here. So let's take a listen. And again, tell me if there's an echo, I can fix it pretty quick. Kelsey, let me know as well.
Seizing it, I guess. It could be argued that that's when it was seized. We had the intent to seize it right there.
Right. Took the key fob, went outside, had a pardon me, had a tow truck driver actually put it onto the back of a flatbed. Ultimately, it was transported. Correct.
Correct.
And you became aware at some point that there was video evidence. You just referenced it. Video evidence of that. I'm going to call it seizure process. Is that right?
Yes.
And that video evidence had a timestamp on it. Correct.
Yes.
Okay. You're also aware, as the supervisor of Michael Proctor, that he swore under oath in multiple affidavits in support of search warrants that the SUV was seized at 5:30 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And you knew at the time, because you were actually there, and you knew when the vehicle was seized, that stating under oath in an affidavit that it was 5:30 p.m. and not 4:12 p.m., that was a false statement, correct?
There's a discrepancy in time there, yes.
Did you take any action, you yourself as a supervisor, did you take?
So he said that was a false statement, and Buchanan, instead of saying, yes, it's a false statement, said, that is a discrepancy, I would agree.
Take any action to correct that false or misleading state? Let me ask it a different way. Did you take any action to correct that time to the accurate time of 4:12 in any of the affidavits that you became aware of?
No, the actual time of the seizure through the video, we learned much later. So the approximate time, 5:30, although inaccurate, I did not take any action to correct it, no.
And
the approximate time of 5:30, although inaccurate. And one of the problems is, like, I get it, and I understand the timeline and what Jackson's trying to set up as far as when they're with the car, when the first pieces of taillight are being found, how this process is going down the road, these time discrepancies, why it is so important. I don't know if the jury does. You guys tell me, right? If any of you that are watching it for the first time, how important is this timeline, especially the timeline of when they started to collect evidence and find the taillight pieces and the parts of the video that are clipped out, and how it is lining up pretty good for the defense. But I still think, just like I think the Commonwealth has not pulled it all together yet to really prove their theory, the defense has to tie it all together as well if they're trying to really point out how this timeline all works.
you received that video as a production from the defense. You did not have access to that video, correct?
Yes.
And so at the time that Michael Proctor actually drafted these affidavits and swore to them under oath, he did not know that a video existed, correct? Objection.
Sustained, you have to word it differently.
Sure. At the time that let me ask it a different way. At the time that you reviewed his declarations under oath, you did not know that a video existed.
No, we did not know.
And that's also like such a key point to all of us that have been following it, is Proctor had a lot of this video that he basically buried in a file. That's an issue. But a lot of the other people involved didn't know these videos existed, including Buchanan, including Brian Higgins, and their testimony was already locked in. And a lot of what they did was already locked in. That's an issue. That's a major issue for them. How are they going to deal with it?
If I may have just a moment, Your Honor.
Sure.
I think this is where I wanted to stop anyway. Yeah. Okay, the next section, he starts going through the sustained findings. And supervisors act basically as quality control. Let's get back to that group chat. And now we're going to get back into the text message with Proctor for, again, one of the most uncomfortable exchanges we've seen so far in this trial. And it's uncomfortable because when you are dishonest about things that are very obvious, it's uncomfortable for everybody. I think Jackson loves it. I think he finds comfort in that discomfort, which a lot of lawyers do, because you want to see a witness squirm a little bit. You want to see them press. You want to see them say things that are just completely illogical, like my memory gets better over time, right? You love to hear stuff like that as a lawyer because you hope the jury, who's being logical people, who everybody is saying, use your common sense, you hope they do exactly that.
Is that a photograph that was sent by Trooper DeChico to the group?
According to this document, yes.
Who is depicted in that photograph?
The big story, Mr. David Yannetti, criminal defense attorney.
Do you see that person in court?
Yes, I do.
Where is he seated? What is he wearing?
He's seated right there wearing a blue tie and a dark suit, white shirt.
Thank you. We can bring the lights up, Your Honor. Okay. In response to, and going back to the multi-page document FF, in response to Trooper Chico's photograph that he sent to the group, you responded to that photograph, did you not?
Yes, this document indicates so, yes.
And you responded by laughing at it, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
So again, I thought this was a bigger deal because I thought all he did was acknowledge it with a like mark, but no, he is communicating. Yeah, he's working. He's like, I had this other job I was doing. I couldn't see the whole text on my phone. So, I was doing, or on my Apple Watch. So all I did was just acknowledge it. I couldn't even see the disgusting words that were being said. It's like, well, how did you see the picture on your Apple Watch? And then you typed in, haha, I assume you didn't actually read it. But then came the next paragraph, which you also liked. So you were engaging in this conversation. You didn't just acknowledge that it was happening. That's a problem to me if I was a juror. What is the difference between mark for evidence and mark for identification? So a lot of times you're laying the foundation. So you mark it for identification. You ask them, is this a fair and accurate depiction of the Sallyport that night or of the Lexus taillight? They say yes. Is that what it looked like on February 1st, 2022? Yes. Okay, judge, I'd like to enter this into evidence now. Is there an objection? But you have to identify it first. This is D1. And what is this witness? Tell me that it's authentic. Tell me that it's real. And then we see if there are any objections. Then if it's in, now it's entered as evidence, exhibit D1. So identification is as you're laying the foundation to get it into evidence. All right. Tamery says, Peter, testimony is never exact from one trial to another. Words change, but meaning doesn't. I completely agree. Which is why I said some things I wouldn't quibble over. Some impeachments are not worth it, but oh boy, some were absolutely worth it.
Well, that's what it says, or that's what you did.
I don't remember.
Trooper Proctor then, former Trooper Proctor, Michael Proctor, then responded, correct?
That's what it says here, yes.
And he responded to the group, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
Michael Proctor then responded again. Is that right?
Yes.
He wrote, no nudes so far, correct?
That's what it says, yes.
Michael Proctor responded yet again. Is that right?
That's correct.
And in reference to Mr. Yannetti's photograph, he wrote, I hate that man. I truly hate him, correct?
That's what it says.
There's a trooper by the name of Moore, M-O-O-R-E, correct?
There is.
And he disliked Trooper Proctor's phrase, his statement, no nudes so far, correct?
That's what it says.
Did that indicate to you that Moore was disappointed that Trooper Proctor or Michael Proctor had not found naked pictures of Miss Reed as yet?
I don't know what that indicated for Mr. Moore.
And then you responded.
And that's another, you can answer that, right? I don't know what somebody meant. I don't know what they were thinking because you can't get into their head. That's speculation. I get all that. But there are some things that are just too obvious to deny. And he's about to do that here very soon. Touche. At times this trial, I've wondered if Karen Reed is driving the defense more versus just very involved. How much can a lawyer veto a client's suggestion for strategy or questions before risking ineffective assistance? So there are rules on what's ineffective assistance, what's not. There are rules on what a client has to decide versus what's a lawyer's job. Trial strategy is a lawyer's job. They can take their clients, notes, but if it really blows up, you can ask the judge and talk to the judge. But am I going to ask this question? Are we going to call this witness? Usually you want to do what your client says and what your client feels is important, but the lawyer has the last word on trial strategy and case strategy, especially because a lot of times clients want to do things that are inadmissible or that you can't do. And it's a lawyer's job to explain that and to only do what's appropriate at trial. When? Do you think the defense is forcing the Commonwealth to call Brian Higgins and Michael Proctor? I think they thought they would. I think they hope they would because they think they would destroy him on cross. But I think they're just smoking Yuri Buchanan as much as they can, regardless of if they call. I think it's like, make my day. I think the defense right now with these witnesses is basically thinking, make my day. If you don't, we're going to try to make it as bad as possible. If you do, it's not like we're going to hold back. Collusion, not collision. How are all these hearsay statements not offered for the truth of the matter? I hit him. Please explain. I don't get it. So there are a state of mind, effect on the listener, taking steps in an investigation, excited utterance, admission against interest, statement by a party opponent. There are all sorts of exceptions that it can fall into, whether it's her state of mind, whether it's a statement against her interest, she's a party opponent. There's all sorts of exceptions to different rules. So each individual one might have a different hearsay exception. But I think you're picking up on the point. Many times lawyers want a juror to hear it because they want them to think it's true. Do you think the revelation of the video is why the Commonwealth isn't calling Brian Higgins and Brian Albert? I don't know if the video of Brian Higgins has much to do with Brian Albert necessarily. I think there's a lot of reasons not to call him. Maybe Brian Higgins told him he'd plead the fifth. We're going to get to some of that lawyer talk, but it just got worse for Brian Higgins today, in my opinion. All right, let's keep listening here.
To the phrase, funny, I'm going through his retarded client's phone, correct?
I acknowledged that text message being sent.
You acknowledged it by liking it, correct? With a thumbs up.
I acknowledged it by responding with a thumbs up emoji.
The fact is,
I mean, what do you guys think in the chat? Do you thumbs up things you don't like? I will say I have thumbs up things as okay. Like, hey, I'm on my way. Thumbs up, okay. Hey, I'm going to order this for dinner tonight. Okay. Hey, I just got this case. Okay. I don't think I would thumbs up this person says something racist. I don't think I would do that, right? So even when it's okay, it still feels like some kind of acceptance or ratification or something like that, right? That's what I'm thinking, but I do use it as okay. It's not always like I like it, but it's definitely like I'm down with it, I feel like. I don't know. You guys tell me. Emojis are such a weird thing, right?
Trooper Proctor told you, his supervisor, in this series of text messages that he was going through Miss Reed's phone. Is that right?
Correct.
And he also informed you, his supervisor, that he was going through her phone looking for nudes or naked pictures of her on her phone. Correct?
Yeah, somebody said, I use thumbs up when I don't know what else to say in response. I agree with that. So this is the part where Yuri Buchanan, again, there's multiple times where his credibility gets crushed. You have to eat it. You're sitting here taking the bullets for Proctor. He said no nudes. You got to be like, yeah, he was looking for nudes, I guess. I didn't know. You can still stick with, I didn't read the whole text or whatever. I didn't see everything. But when Yanetti's like, he was looking for nudes, you have to say, yeah, he was looking for nudes because he said, I haven't found any nudes yet. To disagree with that, that's tough.
He did not tell me that he was going through naked pictures, for naked pictures through the phone.
He wrote, no nudes so far, right?
That is what is written, yes.
What did you think he was looking for when he wrote that phrase?
I don't know what he was looking for.
What would be a reasonable interpretation of what Michael Proctor was looking for when he wrote, no nudes so far?
Hey, I don't know.
Motorcycles, handbags, pair of shoes, or naked pictures of Miss Karen Reed?
His mission was to go through the phone to look for digital evidence that's related to the crime.
Oh, his mission is to go through the phone to look for digital evidence related to the crime. Well, what do her nudes have to do with that? He just, this could have been over. There was a couple points where I actually thought, we're going to get there, where I thought Buchanan just like kind of agreeing with Jackson took some of the sting out of some of the questions. That did not happen here. This stung about as bad as it could. Taylor, I like it. Why don't you guys all let me know what you think of the video so far, right? Do you acknowledge this video? You hit that thumbs up?
Crime. The fact that he wrote no nude so far, I cannot comment on.
You cannot comment on, or you don't want to comment on.
I don't know what he was looking for in that specific time.
You certainly did nothing. You took no action to stop him from potentially looking for naked pictures of my client, correct?
That's correct.
In fact, last week you testified that in your view, Michael Proctor handled himself in this investigation with integrity. That's what you said, correct?
That's correct.
Do you stand by that testimony?
The investigation was handled with integrity and honor.
Do you stand by your testimony that Michael Proctor conducted himself during the course of this investigation with integrity?
Yes, I do.
He also called her retarded, correct?
That is what's written.
that's what's written. That's a very passive way of saying it, Sergeant. That's what's written, or that's what he wrote.
And I like Jackson picked his spots. I feel like sometimes people were complaining first trial that he did it too much, like those kind of comments, but you have to pick your spots. And when he says that's what's written and you don't want to say it, but you know it's true, that's important. He's pointing that out to the jury, like, look at this guy. And when we read the jury instructions about how you view witnesses and their credibility, remember how Yuri Buchanan dealt with all of these difficult questions. Difficult mostly because of his buddy, Michael Proctor. Bob Jr., hey, Peter, sorry if I missed it, but does the jury know for a fact that Proctor was fired for his work on this case? Has the defense brought in the report from Mass State poll? No, they know he was fired. I think he did talk about that he was fired for his work on this case during Cross today. I think I might have it in here somewhere, but they haven't been able to get into the full findings yet for Proctor, but they have for Yuri. Chris K, hey, Peter, first time super chat. Could Alan Jackson ask Buchanan why he can't remember anything underway on Cross, but has perfect recollection under a redirect? I do recall versus perfect memory. So he can ask if he wants. Buchanan would probably give some passive answer, but what you can also do as a lawyer is just say it in closing. You remember Trooper Buchanan, he remembered everything on direct and redirect. On Cross, poor guy couldn't remember a thing. You can make that argument in Cross, and that's what I would expect. You know my stance on Karen Reed. I know, Ben. I'm glad you're still in the conversation. I appreciate that. But Yuri Buchanan answers on this had to aggravate the jury a lot. Horrible strategy by Yuri Buchanan, idiot. So in case you guys don't know, Ben thinks that there is a lot of evidence being built that Karen Reed did hit John O'Keefe with her car and did commit a crime. And I've said this with people. We can continue to have this conversation, answer questions, see how we see things differently in this case. I'm open to that. But I'm glad you said this, because if you would have told me Yuri Buchanan was a great job, really credible witness, I'm sure the jury loved him and trusted him, then it's tough. Then I'm like, what are we trying to do here? Like, are we having a conversation with what's good, what's bad, what is being proven, what's not? So I appreciate this. I appreciate this, Ben, because you didn't have to say it and you did. Peter, do you think the video of the Sallyport was key today? I don't think it was as big of a deal as many people do, but I thought Jackson did a good job using it today to show a couple specific things that we're going to talk about when we get there. I don't think that's as big of a deal or as important as some of the other inconsistencies and things that Yuri Buchanan had to say. But it fits in with the narrative Jackson is telling with his questions.
That's what he wrote.
And that's what you read.
I have no memory of reading that. I acknowledged him going through the phone on my Apple Watch. I have no memory of him writing retarded on a text message.
And you'll agree that that is one of the most vile and insensitive and incendiary terms one could use in modern society. Retarded, correct?
That is correct.
You have to agree with that, right? You have to agree with that. Everybody feels that way. So he's agreeing with that. So it's some kind of condemnation against Proctor, but not enough.
And in fact, through your response to that vile phrase, you encouraged it because you liked it with a thumbs up, correct?
Objection. Sustained.
Did you encourage that statement by Michael Proctor by liking it with a thumbs up?
I don't know if it encouraged him, but so I cannot speak to
But
that.
that's what you did.
I acknowledged the text message being sent.
I want to be clear. These text messages were sent to you by your direct report, by your direct subordinate, correct?
That's correct.
And there was even someone on that text chain who was more senior than you, Lieutenant Fanning, right?
That's correct.
Michael Proctor was both your partner and the lead investigator on this case when he wrote that, correct?
He's a subordinate, and he was the case officer.
This thread, text thread, contains.
All right, we're going to jump ahead a little bit. He does start to talk about, again, the findings for Proctor and Buchanan. He's like, did you read the findings? Did you read the report when he got terminated? And what does Buchanan say? No, of course not. You're a subordinate who you were punished for actions involving, and he was terminated for work he did on a case where he was your subordinate, and you didn't even read the findings or the report? Okay. Like, why? Why would you? If I was Jackson, I would have been like, you didn't care what was in there? You didn't want to know if you agree or disagree? If they said things that are completely false in there, you wouldn't want to know that? Your buddy, your subordinate, your Mr. Integrity and Honor got terminated, and you didn't even care enough to read it to see why? If they did him dirty, you didn't even want to look at that, huh? Interesting. Because that to me was one of those unbelievable things. Like, you really didn't look into it. Did Alan Jackson set himself up to question Brian Higgins on the butt dials and his false story about them today with the videos at the end? Oh, man. Brian Higgins, he's teed up right now. He's teed up. Bella's mom, Peter, don't you think it was a missed opportunity by the defense to not ask Yuri Buchanan and Proctor had drinks at dinner before returning to Canton PD? I don't know the answer to that. Is the answer to that yes? I'm not sure. It all depends on what the answer is, right? And Alan Jackson knows the answers to his own questions. Jay, is it possible Yuri dug himself in a hole early on with his statements? This could have gone a lot better if he owned his mistakes and denounced Proctor. Yeah, Andrews admitted he's the lead investigator, because Jackson was even like, in that report, do you know if they called Proctor the lead investigator? He's like, I don't know. I haven't seen it. He's the case agent. It's like, okay. Elf, I don't have an Apple Watch, so I don't know the answer, but I'm sure a lot of people in the chat do. All right, let's jump to the next section here.
Let me ask it differently. Did you think his text was appropriate?
I don't remember reading that text.
As you sit here now, do you think that text is appropriate?
No, it is not.
Do you think it's professional?
No, it is not.
Do you think it shows integrity?
That text message does not show integrity.
Do you think it shows honor?
A great line of questioning. Now, Buchanan's going to double down at the end to be like, Proctor did everything in this investigation with integrity and honor. But we talked about this in prior videos. This is how you break it down, because he cannot say yes to these questions. Sorry. Yeah, he can't say yes.
A word I expect you hold dear.
That text message does not show honor.
On October 15th, 2022, you completed a performance review of Michael Proctor, correct?
That's correct.
Specifically, you were asked to rank his, quote, oral and written communication skills, end quote, correct?
Correct.
That's part of an overall evaluation and performance review. Is that right?
Yes, overall 90-day quarterly annual review.
You were specifically asked to rank whether he effectively would, whether members, your subordinates, would effectively communicate with others, both within and outside the department, in oral and written form, correct?
That's correct.
And you rated him as exceptional, a number 4 rating out of 5, correct?
That's correct.
You imagine, first off, 4 out of 5 is exceptional. I haven't seen any rating systems like that. But imagine reading these texts. Now, here's the point. And what we can all, garner from this is the fact that Yuri Buchanan did not know that those private text messages were going to become public. So in fairness, he was not grading those private text messages, private-ish text messages, right?
You actually went on to write and comment on Michael Proctor, and you wrote, quote, Trooper Michael Proctor displays professional demeanor, composure, dignity, and respect during the performance of his duties, and especially during his interactions with the public. This is seen during interviews with witnesses, suspects, as well as victims and their families, end quote. That was a statement you wrote about Michael Proctor, correct?
That is correct.
And this is after the text chain that we've just been talking about, where he calls Miss Reed retarded and references looking for nude photographs of her, correct?
That is correct.
Was your statement?
That ain't great, right? That's not great. Rebecca, 19K, 19,000 more. I wish it was just 19 more, but yes, everybody go subscribe so we can get that number up too. Saver Tooth, thanks for gifting 20 memberships. Get some new Lawyer You Know members in here during the video today.
In that evaluation, true or false?
It was true.
You knew Michael Proctor's proclivities, obviously. He told them to you, correct?
The term proclivities?
You knew what he tended to do, what he wanted to do through his own comments, to look for nudes on a woman's phone, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You were aware, sir, that he had received evidence in a case, evidence that doesn't belong to him, belongs to the Massachusetts State Police, at least at that point, correct? A cell phone.
I was aware that he received a cell phone, yes.
And he used that power and the authority to go through that cell phone and look for nudes of my client, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
During the same course of your evaluation, you were also asked to evaluate his investigative ability, correct?
That's correct.
You rated him the highest standard in the Massachusetts State Police, outstanding, a 5, correct?
That's correct.
And you went on to write about Michael Proctor in the commentary below that rating to justify it. Is that right?
That is accurate, yes.
You wrote, quote, Trooper Proctor has had a high-profile caseload with a lot of eye and pressure from external sources during the first day of the investigation. He handled himself and all the case with utmost professionalism and competence. He is able to investigate his case thoroughly and with strict integrity, end quote. Correct?
Which quarterly review was this?
This is the same one, October 2022.
He's like, that's accurate. I just want to know which one.
Right? Those are your comments.
That sounds very accurate. I just was not sure which quarterly review that was for.
Professionalism?
Yes.
You believe that he acted in accordance with the highest standards of professionalism?
During his 90-day performance, yes.
And you didn't just say he displayed professionalism. You said utmost professionalism, correct?
Yes.
Competence? Do you believe he displayed competence?
Yes.
And not just integrity, but he conducted himself, as you put it, with strict integrity. Is that right?
That is correct.
Did it show integrity in your view when your subordinate Michael Proctor called Ms. Reed retarded? Objection.
What's the objection?
I believe that as a U.S. citizen, he has the right to comment. That's his First Amendment right.
Okay, let's take a second there. He thinks he has a right to comment his First Amendment right. As you guys know, we consider the constitutional rights to be very important on this channel and in this group of the utmost importance, and I couldn't agree more. I think Michael Proctor should be able to say whatever he wants. I do not think we should put Michael Proctor in jail for saying that about somebody. I don't think that we should at all. But does that mean people aren't responsible for what they say? That things can't happen to you? Like you can get fired for what you say? That you can hurt people for what they say? That what you say can show somebody what you feel inside and think inside and who you are? Just because you have a First Amendment right doesn't mean I can't know exactly who you are based on what you say. Right? It means you can have whatever opinion you want about me, and I'm not going to throw you in jail for it. But now I know how you feel about me. And if you have certain actions afterwards that line up with what you said, I'm allowed to connect those dots. The First Amendment does not protect me from figuring out you're a jerk, right? That's not how the First Amendment works. But he thinks like he was being slick there by saying, you know, Mr. Lawyer Guy, how about the First Amendment? It's like, what?
We uphold the Constitution, and it's unfortunate, unprofessional what he said in the private text message communication. He might have been voicing his frustrations. I cannot speak for Michael Proctor. It is unprofessional and unfortunate that he said that.
This was not, Sergeant Buchanan, a private text message conversation. This was with his boss and 4 or 5 other individuals, one of whom was your boss, correct?
Correct.
This was communication intended for and received by members of his unit in furtherance of his investigative authority, correct?
It was amongst members of the unit.
He was updating his boss about what he was doing in furtherance of the investigation, going through her phone, correct?
No, I would disagree with you on that. This was a group chain, text message chain that we were discussing private matters in our personal lives.
Private matters, including going through Ms. Reed's phone?
That is unfortunately shared on that group text.
So in other words, to the public, he holds one face in private conversations with you and your colleagues within the unit. He shows a completely different face, private face, correct? Objection. You said that you believe that he has a constitutional right, a First Amendment right, to call Ms. Reed a suspect in his official investigation, in his official capacity as a Massachusetts state trooper, to call her retarded? That's your justification? Objection. Sustained.
It's just so bad. It's just so, and maybe it's worse for lawyers. I don't know, but everybody knows about the First Amendment. Like you guys know about the First Amendment. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand the First Amendment. That doesn't make sense here for what we're talking about. Alan Jackson didn't say throw him in jail, right? Burn him at the stake because of this. That's not what Alan Jackson is saying. It's bad. It's so bad. I mean, yes, I did book con law. Okay. So if you want to talk to a constitutional law expert, it's not actually me, but that's just so bad. It's such a bad example. Sabertooth wants to bring everybody into the Lawyer You Know membership crew. Thank you, Sabertooth. I think that's it for that part. I know a little bit more.
You justify his statement, that vile statement.
I do not know.
Do you think it's appropriate, given the fact that he has a First Amendment right to say whatever he wants?
No, I do not.
Good.
Do you think there actually might be members of the community?
And that's how you know he goes back immediately. Like, yeah, okay, that was stupid. First Amendment thing was stupid.
Parents, siblings,
Objection.
children.
Mr. Jackson, I'm going to exclude that question as argumentative. Move on.
He keeps trying a little bit, but I think the jury got his point. Then they start getting into, did Proctor reveal his information or his relationship with the Alberts? He's like, yeah, he told me he kind of knew him as we were walking up and about to interview them. It's like, okay, more on that in a second. He starts showing the videos of Brian Higgins now. And he shows the video of Brian Higgins showing up to Canton PD at 1:27 a.m. with the white Jeep with the snowplow. He's inside Canton PD at 1:28. He's got the hood up and it's black. At 1:29, he walks into, I think it's his office. Then the video jumps to 1:34. Jackson said it must be some kind of motion sensor. And then you can see it looks like he's holding a phone, which Yuri Buchanan kind of agrees. Let's play that little part and then we'll talk about this clip a little bit.
Pause. What do you see in that video?
It appears to be an individual wearing a black beanie hat, black, dark colored sweatshirt with some design on it, and something illuminating by his face.
Can we enhance the time, please? What time is that?
It says 1:34 and 53 seconds in the morning, a.m.
And if you could move the screen over to the individual. Well, does that appear to be the same person?
It could possibly be, yeah.
And does it appear as something in his hands up to his face, the right side of his face or ear?
Yes.
What do you think that is?
It's consistent with a cellular device, possibly a phone or a tablet.
Okay, we can move on, please. Play that through. I believe there's one more video. And Your Honor, this one is a little longer. This is about 10 minutes.
So then he plays 10 minutes of Higgins in the parking lot, going from car to car, getting what he said looks like a duffel bag and maybe a snow broom, I think he said. I don't know what that is. And then he ends up leaving at 1:45:52, so almost 1:46. And thank you, Kyle McGee, for the super sticker, by the way. Gabriella said, what do you think about the 10 minutes of Brian Higgins at the parking lot? So I don't know. I don't know what he was doing, but it's awfully suspicious, right? Like if they don't call Brian Higgins, he's the guy flirting with Karen Reed, wrestling around, mucking it up, whatever, grappling at the waterfall, texting Karen Reed, getting ghosted, texting John O'Keefe, clearly wanting John O'Keefe to come. He's feet away from John O'Keefe when he dies. He doesn't see John O'Keefe. He goes to Canton PD. He's there for 5 minutes. He's walking around. He's moving stuff around. It just looks, he's on the phone. Why? Like it just looks really suspicious. If Karen Reed was doing this, what do you think the Commonwealth would say it was? Consciousness of guilt, covering her tracks, trying to cover something up. I think they'd have a pretty good argument of that. Does this prove Brian Higgins did something to me? No. If Brian Higgins was on trial, I would say not guilty. Whoops, just hit my mic. I would say not guilty. You have not proven beyond a reasonable doubt that he did anything. But this looks really bad for a guy who's just supposed to be a witness in the case that they didn't even want to interview or get his phone because they didn't think there was really going to be anything there because it was no big deal because he wasn't there when a crime was committed. Looks pretty bad for that guy. Which is also why, again, it's a real struggle, I think, for Hank Brennan to determine whether or not he's going to call Brian Higgins. Greg, could Jackson have asked Yuri why he did not take pictures of the car at Karen's parents' house in Dighton before it got on the tow truck? Yeah, absolutely. A lot of people are wondering, and guess what? A ton of questions that I was getting over the last couple of days, some of the lawyers asked those questions. A ton of the questions we talked about we thought would be good. The lawyers asked those questions. So we're going to get into a lot more of that as well. So then real quick, we're just going to talk about something that happened outside the presence of the jury. Alan Jackson wanted to get in to Proctor, the interview with the Alberts, the relationship Proctor had that, the Proctors and the Alberts were second family. Albert wanted to get Proctor a gift for the investigation. They babysit his kids, you know, whatever, all that stuff. So a lot of it came out in the first trial. And I would say that that is all relevant to this case and all important to show bias. But because Yuri Buchanan says, I don't know, I don't recall, I didn't know that stuff, we didn't talk about it, he didn't tell me X, Y, and Z, I don't think it's the worst call in the world for Judge Cannone to not allow it in with this witness. Now, if you call in Albert, if you call Proctor, you should be able to get it in my opinion. Either side calls them. But with Yuri Buchanan, because of his answers, Mr. I don't recall, that's why I don't think it was the worst legal decision, because Judge Cannone made one of the worst legal decisions later on that we're going to get to. CLK, can Brian Higgins' lawyer watch in prep to him testifying? So you're not allowed to kind of like, you're not allowed to say, okay, here's what this person said, here's what this person testified to, here's what this person said. You cannot transfer that to a witness you know is testifying. So you're better off not watching it because it might come into play when you're trying to prepare them. But you can absolutely prepare your witness for trial. Sabertooth, hit the like and subscribe button, folks. Let's keep growing this channel. I mean, family. Anytime it's like family, it makes me think of Fast and Furious, Dom Toretto. Never turn your back on family. Okay. Then we get to the Sallyport video. And Buchanan agrees that in the past, he said that that video was a fair and accurate representation of the Sallyport. And I was really interested in how Jackson was going to use this. And I think he simplified it. I think this is the part I think Buchanan was kind of agreeable, and he took out some of the sting that could have come from the disaster that was this Sallyport video. But I think Jackson set it up in a way where it was a good point. It was not a haymaker, in my opinion. It wasn't like a knock Yuri Buchanan out on the way out of Cross, but I think he did so much damage. It was like 12 rounds of getting pounded on is what it felt like with Jackson crossing Yuri Buchanan. So let's take a listen to how he dealt with this.
Does this appear to be the interior of the Sallyport at Canton PD?
Yes, it is.
And this is what you were questioned about regarding the SUV being pulled into the Sallyport, correct?
Yes.
From a time frame standpoint, just the time frame, this is right after the SUV has been driven in from the flatbed after having been seized in Dighton, correct?
Yes, it was driven off of the flatbed after transportation from Dighton to Canton PD and driven into the Sallyport.
All right. You previously have identified individuals in this video, in this still shot, correct?
Yes.
And what you previously said, and we'll get to subsequent testimony in a second, you previously indicated that the person to the right was you, person to the left, Michael Proctor, correct?
Yes, previously I identified that being Michael Proctor. I was mistaken. That is not me on the right.
That would be the tow truck driver, correct?
That's correct.
That is, in fact, Michael Proctor, however, in the two-tone jacket, correct?
I believe so.
Okay. And as the video is portrayed, at least as we're looking at it, and I'll get to the next question next, as we're looking at it, it appears that we're looking at the right passenger side of the vehicle, as it appears in this video, correct?
That's correct.
And you see a timestamp and a date stamp on the bottom, correct?
It is present. I don't know what it says.
Okay, can we highlight that just a little bit? Can you see what that says?
I believe it says interior Sallyport back wall.
Okay.
537, maybe.
Okay. When you indicated that this was a fair and accurate depiction of the interior Sallyport when the SUV was brought in, you were specifically asked whether or not you or Michael Proctor approached or manipulated or touched the right rear taillight area of the vehicle, correct?
I don't remember the exact verbiage used, but in something along those lines, that's what was asked.
And you indicated that.
Hold on a second. Mountain Mama said that's Brian Albert, not Higgins. Which part now? Now, maybe I missed something because I was listening to this while I was driving today. But so which part was Brian Albert? Did I miss that? Did Jackson ask a question on that? Is that something that's coming later? Let me know. I'm going to be watching the chat as we watch here.
Neither of you did, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. But in point of fact, this video is backward, correct?
Yes, it is a mirror image of what is actually taking place as recorded by the camera.
Can we play this forward? Yes. You see where Mr. Proctor, let's go ahead and pause it. You see where Mr. Proctor went?
Yes, the video depicts him going to that portion of the vehicle, but we can't tell how close.
Everybody's saying it's Higgins. That's what I thought, but man, I mean, I don't know. It wouldn't shock me. It's not Brian Albert, it's Higgins. Okay. That's what I thought. Oh, it's a rumor. All right. We'll have to wait to see if the defense brings it up. If the defense brings it up, then that is, then we'll get more into it. Okay. Keep listening.
Close he is.
And the back, from all appearances, importantly, it appears to be the back driver's side, back left of the vehicle, correct?
That's the way it appears, yes.
Let's play this forward for a second. Pause. Can I ask you to pay special note to the far rear side of the vehicle? Do you see what appears to be Mr. Proctor's head?
Yes.
As the tow truck driver walks past the rear of the vehicle, can you watch and tell me if you see Mr. Proctor do anything or move in any way? Let's go ahead and play forward. Pause. Did you see any volitional movement by Mr. Proctor as the tow truck driver moved past him?
Yes, it appears if that is his head, it shifted weight.
Okay. Let's go ahead and play it forward. Stop. Did you see a person that appeared to morph toward the back of the vehicle? Right there.
There is some anomaly there with the footage, so it could possibly be used to describe that what took place.
Can you recognize that person?
I cannot know.
You indicated previously, does that person look large or small in stature?
I can't tell.
As compared to, for instance, Michael Proctor, whose head you can see above the car. What about this person? Taller or shorter than Michael Proctor?
I can't tell from here. I can't.
You indicated that Chief Berkowitz was a smaller statured person, correct?
I never said that.
I'm sorry?
I didn't know his height.
Larger or smaller? Generally. How about this? Larger or smaller than you?
He's shorter than me.
Okay. Can you tell whether or not that is Chief Berkowitz?
I cannot know.
Okay, let's go ahead and play it for him. And a little bit further. Pause. What does it appear that Mr. Proctor does at this point in the video?
He's walking.
Okay. Do you see anything in his hand?
I cannot tell from the video, but that he might be carrying something.
Remember we looked previously at a portfolio, black portfolio. Does it appear that he may have a black portfolio in his hand?
That is very likely, but I don't know exactly what he's carrying.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this forward.
So I didn't know this, and the jury's not going to know this. I don't think it was super obvious as the lawyers are asking questions. But I guess people in the chat were saying that zipper portfolio is what he put the pieces in where he planted it. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to prove that. But Jackson, I thought before he said it's a portfolio, I was like, oh, does he have a hammer? Does he have a hammer in his hand or a bat? Is that what he shattered the taillight with? Are they actually going to prove that? And it's like, no, it's a portfolio. So what did he shatter it with? When did he shatter it? Again, like that type of stuff is not proven, but just kind of, he has some kind of means to move the taillight pieces, I guess, is what the defense is trying to get at, which I understand. But Peter, do you think Alan Jackson set up the Can PD video to question Brian Higgins on why he lied at trial 1? So there's a lot of Can PD video, but yeah, I mean, I think if Higgins testifies, he's going to get impeached like crazy because of that video. It does not match, in my opinion, multiple ways. It is absolutely Brady, absolutely impeachment evidence on an important witness, impeachment evidence about a third-party culprit. That's like Brady to a T. Netwoman, how is it that Brennan can lead during redirect? He's not supposed to, right? I agree with you. I kept noticing it. And then the most annoying stuff to me is when he says, you knew Jen McCabe was going to do this. Objection leading. I'm sorry. What did you think? Well, I knew Jen McCabe was going to do that. That's the answer. I hate it. I despise it. It's so frustrating. Alan Jackson keeps being told to move on and how much more time. They spent more time investigating what cameras are inverted through Canton than investigating an unintended death. That woman, you're preaching to the choir. I get it. That's what's so frustrating. And all the stuff they did after the fact. Yeah, it's crazy to think about what they actually did with the investigation. I got to resituate. My back is hurting. Ugh. All right, let's keep watching. Actually, we're going to move on to the next section here. Sabertooth, just wild animal here. More 50, more Lawyer You Know memberships. Hopefully you guys will have that gifting turned on. All right. We're going to jump ahead a little bit to get to, so Jackson then flips it, explains what it looks like on the correct side, that Proctor actually is walking near the taillight in question and not the driver's side taillight, and why that's such a big deal and what time he walks by it, and why all that's important. Trying to think. Buchanan agrees that that's the more correct version of it now. And then he gets into the fact that, they talk about it, the shorter guy morphs, right? He like morphs on screen. Who is it? Is it Berkowitz? Is it not? And we'll get into some more of the conversation about the video.
Now off screen, correct?
Yes.
So, in point of fact, Sergeant, when you were asked previously whether the prior video fairly and accurately depicted what you recall as it pertains to the SUV and the Sallyport, that was not quite true, correct?
I'll allow it.
The way I understood the question is what I'm watching accurately depicts what's taking place. It is. Just because it's a mirror image doesn't mean that it's not recording what the actions and what is transpiring.
But you would agree, at least, that the previous video showed exactly the opposite of what was true and correct, not just a mirror image. What is left is right, and what is right is left, correct?
Status to that one.
Would you agree that, in point of fact, a mirror image video is not a true and accurate depiction of what's depicted in a scene?
I think it just is a mirror image of what's taking place. If you see someone walking in or driving a vehicle and it's depicting the action of the vehicle being pulled in, and if it's mirrored, it's pulling in from left to right or right to left. It's still documenting the activity that's taking place.
Or if someone walks to the left.
Yeah, and his explanation is exactly wrong, right? And Jackson points that out here. And that's, I think, the important part of what Jackson has to do. If you're going to make this a big deal, then explain why it's a big deal. The side of the car you're looking at, the time, right? Not a single, I don't know if he said this yet or not, but this was before any taillight pieces have been found. NPD is only 1.5 miles away from Fairview. It's important.
Rear of the vehicle versus the right rear of the vehicle, those two things will be switched, correct?
That is correct, yes.
And you'll agree that the prior video that we showed, that you and I just talked about, the inverted video, appeared for all intents and purposes to show Michael Proctor stay away from the right rear taillight, walk all the way around, and position himself to the left rear taillight. You agree with that, correct?
Objection. Do you agree with that?
It appeared that that is what was happening, but he was standing next to the taillight that was already damaged.
But in the corrected video, which is this one, it actually shows unequivocally that Michael Proctor walked directly to the right rear taillight portion of this SUV. Correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Sure. In the corrected video, this video here, this unequivocally shows that Michael Proctor walked toward the right rear area of that SUV, where the right taillight is, correct?
Yes.
And you'll also agree that this video was taken before any taillight material was ever found at 34 Fairview, correct?
Can you zoom in on the time?
Not on this one, this is backwards.
I know that the SUV pulled into the garage, the Sallyport, at 5:35, and we were still on scene at 5:51, almost 52. So, yes, if that's timestamp before 5:51, before we left Canton PD, then yes, taillight pieces had already been found.
So 5:35, 5:37 is before the first taillight pieces were found. Right.
I'd have to see a timestamp of when they were exactly found, but if that's...
5:37, 5:35 is before 5:45.
Yes.
May I have just a moment, Your Honor? Yes. Would that be, does he have glasses on?
I don't know.
Would it be Chief Berkowitz?
It could be Chief Berkowitz. I don't know.
Can you tell me the date that's on the the date and timestamp at the bottom?
Oh, I don't know what happened. All right, can you hear me now? All right, I don't know what happened. Something happened where the mic muted. Can you guys hear me now? Hit the like button if you can hear me. I'm waiting for one to say you can hear me. Kelsey, can you hear me? All right, now you can hear me. All I said basically is we're going to jump to hear how Alan Jackson winds up his cross What is the most important thing for him to end on? What does he want the jury to think when Yuri Buchanan steps down eventually? Ending this cross-examination when you're preparing it is very important. That's all I said.
It appears the time is 11:08 and 59 seconds in the morning of possibly January 30th of 2022.
Okay, let's go ahead and pull this back up full frame.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask you, do you have a point of reference? Does that appear to be the interior camera facing the other direction where the SUV was depicted in the Sallyport earlier?
It's the opposite of what we had viewed earlier, diagonally across, I believe.
So this would be the right rear of the vehicle, correct?
That is correct.
Now I'd like to ask you to take a look at the video. Now that we have that point of reference, go ahead and have a final video. Can you make out, now that that's paused, can you make out what's depicted toward the top of the screen?
Yes, it appears to be a distorted image of that antique police cruiser.
Okay. And does the area next to the police cruiser appear to be empty? Some snow on the
Yes,
ground?
it does. Yes, it does look that way. Yes.
Okay. So there's nothing next to the police cruiser, at least at this point, correct?
That's what it appears to be. Yes.
Can we take a look at the timestamp on this document or on this frame? I'd ask you to let the jurors know if you can see what the actual runtime is on this.
I could see the timestamp. I don't know the runtime, what it's going to be.
It's 5:07, 10 or 12, something like that?
That's the timestamp, yes.
Okay.
Yes, PM.
Now, if we could just play this forward, go back to full screen. Pause. Now, how many seconds would you estimate, just in your head, just went by in real time?
Approximately 5 seconds.
Okay. Do you see something in the video now?
Yes.
What is that?
It appears to be the seized Lexus SUV.
And now let's look at the timestamp. What time is that?
5:47 PM.
So in about, according to your testimony, in about 5 seconds, the time jumped from before the SUV was in the Sallyport to about 5:50 PM after the SUV had already arrived and is now situated in the Sallyport, correct?
Yes.
Ain't that something? That view, that would be pretty important, just happened to jump 50 minutes. The shorter figure just happened to morph when the camera wasn't working, which makes no sense as far as motion sensor goes. It's inverted. And Brennan gets him to come on redirect and say, oh, there were inverted videos all around town at Canton. It's an epidemic. It's really something. Really something.
That is correct.
The time frame that we just saw earlier of about 5:35, 5:36 or so with you and, I'm sorry, with the tow truck driver and Michael Proctor in the video. That is not in this video. It's not captured in this video.
It did not present itself, no.
Did not present itself.
That's all I have.
And that was it. That's what he sat down on. That was very effective to me. It's like what we have is completely useless. Not completely, but what we don't have would have been pretty important to put all this to bed. And we wouldn't just have to take your word for it and Gallagher's word for it and all these law enforcement officers' word for it. We could actually have the real evidence that everybody's so mad and they think this is some fake movement to say that there's reasonable doubt in this case and that everybody's doing it for some ulterior motive. It's like all of this could have been put to bed. And by the way, people are going to say that to me, somebody who's a lawyer, about lots of cases. If you're new to the channel, we've been doing this for 4.5 years. I am always starting out not guilty, presumption of innocence. And I stay there usually longer than most people in the chat. But I always say the chat is more representative of the jury. And so if you think it's just this case, it's not. It's not. It may be for some people. There are some influencers that I'm friends with that happen to think most people are guilty, but even they are looking at this one differently. Let's answer some questions before we get to redirect. When you have a trial, when do you start writing your closing argument? Before trial or wait until the end? How do you decide what things to include? This trial has so much. That's the hardest part, is like worrying about leaving something out, trying to put as much in to where you're not also going to bore the jury and do too much. I make a shell at the beginning of trial because I know, guaranteed, there's going to be certain things that come out. I have themes in my case I want the jury to remember. I know about, what we're going to ask for, how much money, how we're going to decide it, some good things about our client, bad things about their action of their client, some of the treatment. How a lot of that's going to come out. But then I fill in the points I think were most important. If jurors ask questions, some of the things they have question about, I fill all that in and I basically redo it because I really cut it down as much as I can. Michelle L., did you catch when Brennan accidentally dropped the name of the corrupt former FBI agent, Nicholas Ginturco? Oops, no. I did not catch that. I did not. Heather Frank, where is the timestamp on the Commonwealth's picture of the broken taillight? Where is the ring video of the red taillight cover missing before being brought to the Sallyport? They talk about it, but didn't show it. Did I miss it? I don't remember seeing that. I'm not 100% positive exactly what you're asking for. There's just so much evidence in this case. But I know officers at Serif that they called last trial. They didn't call this one. Why? Why not? And will the defense call? Can AJ ask Sergeant Buchanan if evidence misleads them? Say they find a deceased person and the evidence reads S, but turns out it appears to be red. I think he can argue that the evidence misleads them or they've been wrong and then had to change course. I think you can ask that. Not that Mickey. After today, do you think the jurors will see that it's not just Proctor, but the entire department that is sus? It's a different level of sus, in my opinion, when it comes to Proctor. So I don't know. I definitely think as far as credibility goes, Yuri Buchanan was shot. Brian B., in your opinion, should a judgment not outstanding the verdict be granted? I feel if the jury was all attorneys, it would be not guilty. So yeah, I mean, some kind of directed verdict or acquittal of the case where the judge throws it out. I don't think that's going to happen here. Do I think it should? Let's wait until the accident reconstructionist testifies. If the accident reconstructionist gives us nothing with regards to how a car actually hit John O'Keefe, then maybe I would grant it as a judge. I mean, taken in the light most favorable to the Commonwealth, yeah, they just didn't prove the elements. I don't know, it's tough. They just didn't prove the elements. Gingy Probs had a thought. The scene wasn't abandoned after 121. Whole family coming, going. How did it take officers driving by to find the taillight pieces? It'd be all over my yard looking for stuff. I agree. A lot of people have brought this up, and it's definitely an issue. Definitely an issue. The Higgins video was, I think, an hour after the Commonwealth says the accident happened. All right, let's get to redirect here. He starts out by saying, the Sallyport, you got a number of angles. You didn't invert. Multiple cameras around town are inverted. Like Buchanan wasn't the one that inverted it. He goes through basically the camera was poor quality and just look, this isn't our fault. We're not doing anything nefarious. This is just how it comes. He followed the Lexus the whole time it was on the truck. It was at 5:35 it got there. Taillight piece is exactly the same. He didn't break the taillight. Proctor didn't break the taillight. Nobody planted the taillight. Nobody did any of that stuff. He asked some questions here on redirect. Did Proctor do this? Did you or Proctor do X, Y, and Z? He doesn't know what Proctor did. It's, did you see Proctor do this with your own eyes? There were some objections. It seemed like it was sustained, even though Judge Canoni let it go a little further than it should. Did you listen to the defendant's interview about the taillight? He goes through how Yuri Buchanan doesn't have connections to everybody, which I think is kind of funny because he almost is ratifying what the defense says, right? Like, if you have a connection, maybe you did something wrong. Maybe you're corrupt, but you don't have any connections, right? I don't think I would have highlighted that, right? Because highlighting it like, you should listen to this guy because he's got no connections. Then what do you do to all the guys that have all the connections, right? That's an issue. Let me see here. Okay. Then we have Hank Brennan basically going through all the evidence of the case again. You had a broken taillight, broken cocktail glass, defendant saying I hit him, interviewing Higgins, McCabe's, Alberts. 34 Fairview was not a crime scene. John O'Keefe never went in. That's what all the witnesses said. And he basically retells the whole case, all the evidence, and why Yuri Buchanan said all the evidence points in one direction. I think that was actually a good strategy on redirect by Hank Brennan to try and erase a lot of what happened in Cross, simplify it. Occam's razor, like, look, this is obviously what happened. Look what we have: broken taillight, guy on the lawn, car was there, she was there. I would have added in, I don't think he added in that, she was drunk or how many drinks she had. I would have added that in too. Simplify the evidence, lay it out for the jury in a simple way. And we're going to listen to some of that and then kind of how he wraps it up with Yuri Buchanan. And while I think that was a smart strategy on redirect, it didn't do anything to help Yuri Buchanan's credibility. He could not rehabilitate Yuri Buchanan. It's almost like he didn't even try. The best that he did is, you're not friends with these people. You have no connections to these people. I don't think that was great. Vili said, Alan Jackson doesn't need to prove anything. They don't even have to prove conspiracy, just show corruption, and all the evidence and testimony may be in doubt. I agree they don't have to. But some of the strategies they take in this case creates a situation where the jury's going to be like, that's total BS, unless you give me some reasonable belief that that could be true. It all depends on how it's presented, right? Obviously, legally, they don't have a burden. But in the jurors' minds, what are the jurors thinking? All right, let's listen to some of this redirect.
To go to their house rather than ask them to come to the police station?
Well, there were multiple factors involved in that decision. One, the driving conditions. Two, these are witnesses that had suffered some sort of traumatic event finding their friend on the front lawn of their own town. So going to their home would provide hopefully a more comfortable scene for them to recall information in the comfort of their own home.
So just so you guys know, like, how my brain works sometimes. Sheila said, thank you for your time. So glad I found you. Reminds me of that. Was it like Mariah Carey, that thank God I found you, I was lost with that? That's just like where my mind goes, like music and movies all the time. Like every time you guys go in the chat, which is why it's so hard for me to read the chat while I'm also talking at the same time. Sorry for the interruption.
You spoke to them. Did you receive any information from any of them that Mr. O'Keefe went into 34 Fairview at any time that night?
No.
When you were asked questions about scene versus crime scene, was 34 Fairview, the home, the inside of the home, a crime scene in your mind?
No.
Was the area where Mr. O'Keefe found an important or unimportant area?
It's very important.
Did you know whether or not any of the Canton Police Department officers at that time had done any type of limited search of the area?
Just whether you knew.
At that point in time, we did know, yes.
What did you learn about?
And just you notice in this, it's like the guy remembers everything. He knows everything. Text chains, conversation, police reports, investigation, when it happened, what's important, what's not important. He knows all of it on redirect. I actually thought, because of how long and painful Cross was, this redirect would have highlighted to me, if I was a juror, just how different Yuri Buchanan was depending on who the lawyer was up there. Let me know if you guys agree or not.
The scope or the breadth of that search by the Canton Police Department?
I'll allow that.
I knew it was brief based on the weather conditions and the item that was recovered.
After you spoke to Jennifer McCabe, and did you say Brian Albert?
Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Albert.
At that point, did you have any reason to want to go into 34 Fairview?
No, I did not.
Did you learn whether or not Canton police officers spoke to those particular people who lived there before you got there?
I had learned, yes.
What did you learn?
I learned that Canton police officers went inside the home, spoke with members inside the home as well.
When you speak to witnesses, you've done many interviews over your
Yes, I
career?
have. Yes.
In addition to asking questions, what are you looking for when you speak to a witness?
We're looking for body language, how willing they are to provide the information, and as with everyone.
What do you think those agents saw when they were looking at this body language for Jen McCabe?
We always trust by verify. We corroborate their statements.
Did you see anything about these witnesses when you spoke to them that cued you or concerned you to do a further investigation?
Ask it differently.
Was there anything about their mannerism or demeanor that stood out to you?
I'll allow it.
No.
After speaking to
Were they honest? Were they telling the truth? That's basically what he's asking here.
the witnesses, in your mind as an investigator, what did you need to do next?
I needed to take a look at Mr. O'Keefe's injuries for myself.
And you share with us detail about when you went down to Good Samaritan Hospital to make observations.
Yes, sir.
On direct examination, I pointed out you're not a medical examiner, are you?
I am not, no.
Not a biomechanical.
All right, so here we go. This is maybe the single worst decision Judge Cannoni has made in the entire trial. I pointed out you're not a medical examiner. This is what we call the opposite of tendering an expert, right? It's like you went to medical school, you were an ME for this many years, you studied this, you've seen this many car accidents, this many dog bites, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That's when you're setting up, okay, now let me ask you your medical opinion here. Instead, he says, you're not a medical examiner. I pointed that out on direct, right? Yeah. But here I'm going to go and ask you your medical opinion of what the injuries looked like. And Alan Jackson correctly and timely objects, and Judge Cannoni overrules it to allow him to testify to something she said you had to be a medical doctor last time to testify to. And this time, multiple experts have been tendered to that, and they have to be voir dired, and they had to be objected to, and Daubert challenges for her to make these decisions. Yet, Yuri Buchanan, English is his third language, but medicine might be his first. We didn't ask him what language 1 and 2 were, right? Like this was wild to me that Judge Cannoni allowed him to testify to this.
I am not known.
In your experience, when you looked at Mr. O'Keefe and had a chance to study his body, what impression did that leave with you?
Study his body. You had the opportunity to study his body.
With relative to your investigation?
Objection.
You had the opportunity to study his body. What impression did that leave you with? What? What is the causation of his injuries is the appropriate question for an expert. After studying his body, what impression did that leave you with? Like, what? That was crazy to me. People can say bias, Bev. To me, I would use, I'm not going to say what I would say, but it was almost just like, it was an unintelligent decision by her. Like either she wasn't paying attention. You can call it bias if you want. That's fine. I think she wasn't paying attention, was like, oh crap. Because this was a terrible decision, easily wrong, dead wrong. And she eventually, I think, figures it out in a second.
At that point in time, after viewing Mr. O'Keefe's injuries, my impression shifted from him possibly being struck with a glass that was located at the scene where he was found to him being struck by a vehicle.
Why?
So his impression changed after he set it up where you looked at the body, you studied the body, and you determined that John O'Keefe was not hit by a glass, but instead was hit by a car. John said she kind of corrected herself. I agree. Too late. And didn't strike it. If you really realize you made a mistake like that as a judge, you strike it. That's what you need to do. Say, we're going to strike it, strike that answer from his, from evidence, from the record. He is not a medical doctor. You'll hear from medical experts later on this issue. That's a big miss to me, number one. Number two, I am definitely pushing for every ARCA witness to be able to answer this question. After studying the pictures of John O'Keefe's body and applying your expertise, was John O'Keefe hit by a car? They should all be able to answer it now. I think that's another way where you can kind of fix this. John says, all good point. It's not fair, John, right? I do this every day. I learn how to correct the record and what to ask for. So I appreciate you pointing that out because, again, as a juror, I want to know what you're going to think when you hear something like this.
Due to the abrasions and cuts on his right arm, and the amount of force, in my experience, the amount of force one would have to generate to produce the wound to his head.
I'm going to strike that last part.
After coming to the conclusion, or strike that, after making your observations and your...
After coming to the conclusion, it's like the medical conclusion, or what did you mean? And then he's like, strike that. Determination.
Determination, did your focus shift at that point?
Yes, it did.
Where did you want to go next?
I wanted to observe the vehicle that the defendant was driving.
What were you going to be looking for?
Any damage to the headlights, windshield, and other parts of the vehicle that would have come into contact with Mr. O'Keefe.
You mentioned the windshield and the headlights. Those are in the front of the car. Did you have an impression at that point?
Yes. Majority of the cases that I had exposure to with pedestrian vehicle strikes, the strike comes from the front of the vehicle. So in my assumption, speculation at that point in time, based on the limited information I had, that was my theory.
I would have followed up maybe with this bit. So you were wrong. So your theory was wrong, right? It's like, Mister, you had this new impression that you knew this, but you were wrong. Because not everything is as it seems initially, right?
When you got to Dighton, did that theory change
Prior to our arrival to Dighton, the theory had changed.
based on information you received from Jennifer McCabe?
Sustained.
What was that based on?
It was based on information I received from Jennifer McCabe's phone conversation,
And what was that information?
that the defendant told her that she had damaged her taillight and showed Mrs. McCabe and Mrs. Roberts the missing pieces and damage to the rear right taillight of her vehicle.
When you got to Dighton and had a chance to look at the defendant's Lexus, did your focus of your investigation develop in any way?
Yes, seeing for myself that there was actual damage, coupled with the statements made. Did I hit him? Could I have hit him? Along with the my observation, obviously, of the vehicle. My focus began to concentrate on the defendant.
So you're not supposed to talk to a witness about their testimony while they're actively testifying. Maybe this seemed so practiced, so prepared. This was some of the most prepared testimony I've seen. And I don't mind a prepared witness, but it was just maybe a mistake to over prepare a witness that had been so under prepared throughout his entire testimony, especially cross-examination. Ashley, thoughts on Brendan acting superior, suggesting he didn't bring in Proctor's evidence? What did AJ agree to about the video metadata when bringing in the videos? I don't know what you're asking. What did he agree to about video metadata when bringing in the videos? I don't know that answer. I think Brennan is one of those guys that doesn't have a problem looking in the mirror and saying something he doesn't believe. I do feel that way about Hank. And there's a lot of lawyers like that. A lot of lawyers that'll tell you that's perfectly fine. That's part of it. It's part of making arguments. You got to be able to do that as a lawyer. I can't do it. Peter, you need to apply heat to your back and take some Advil. Do you think the defense is trying to find peeps that will come forward that were afraid before? It seems like there was something to that, right? With some of the motions. I don't know yet, so we'll see. Yeah, I played a couple hours of pickleball this morning and then drove for 4 hours to Tallahassee, so my back's a little tight. And it's not exactly the most comfortable streaming setup. I'll have to figure something else out. Nick TTT. My concern is that the image of the Canton PD dash cam when they went to check on the kids, the light looks really broken. Am I missing something? Was that in the last trial, Judge Bev, is a hack? I agree. I feel like I can see it either way when I'm looking at the taillight. It's really hard for me to tell the difference in that. That's why I don't think the whole case really hinges on that. If there's no proof John O'Keefe was hit by a car, right? Liz, what do you think of the motion on Aruba? So I haven't read it yet, but I heard about it. I can imagine what it is. I think it's dumb for Hank to do. Like, I really think it's dumb. Like, you weren't even going to talk about this. Now you're going to bring it up, and they're going to be like, oh, okay. So, if anything, I think there'll be some people in the jury that are like, oh, was John O'Keefe kind of a jerk? Was he doing that? Karen Reed was jealous, but if you're going to do something, why not do it right then? Why wait until now? Like, it never made sense for motive. So if a jury's going to take it for something else, that's a risk. And I actually thought it was a smart decision to not overtry the case by Hank Brennan to not bring it in, which makes me think if he's going to adjust his strategy, which his strategy may have been less is more, is he going to reconsider Higgins? Is he going to reconsider Proctor? Is he going to reconsider anybody else inside 34 Fairview? We'll see. All right. He mentions a bunch of other troopers basically involved that are not Michael Proctor. He talks about interviewing Karen Reed with her dad. She was very poised. He found out more than just, could I have hit him? That it was, I hit him in the affirmative, a confession, big revelation to him. And he goes through and repeats basically what everyone said, all the Commonwealth evidence. And we're going to listen to him talk about a little bit about the fact that there was no evidence that John O'Keefe ever stepped foot inside 34 Fairview.
In addition to trying to get or obtain information about statements of the defendant, was there physical evidence that was important?
Yes.
Was there any data evidence that any of the team from the Massachusetts State Police were you aware of them pursuing any data type evidence?
Yes, there was.
Was there some phones involved?
Yes, there were.
What phones did you understand or pursue that you thought might be helpful for your investigation?
For one, Mr. O'Keefe's phone was a device that we were looking into. We also had seized the defendant's phone and were attempting to access that device. There was other digital information that we were seeking as well.
Was the potential data from the defendant's Lexus important to the team of investigators?
Extremely important.
And did any of your team or the team pursue that black box, so-called black box data?
Yes, we did.
You were asked whether you interviewed or present for interviews of Nicole and Brian Albert?
Yes.
And after you spoke to them, including in considering all of the prior information you had, was there any evidence that John O'Keefe went into 34 Fairview Road on January 29, 2024?
There was not.
All right. So that's the big evidence that, you know, he had to get there near the end. Then they talk about, they show all the stuff that Proctor got. Here's what he found on February 8th, February 11th, February 18th. Then they get to a question that so many of you guys were asking me over the last couple of days. As soon as you saw the jeans, what was the first question most of you guys had? And I was like, I don't know. We'll see if the defense brings it up. And here we go.
Can you look at the back of the pants, please?
I'm not, maybe Hank Brennan is watching a lot of stuff going on social media. I would assume he is. I don't think they were asking for the reason Hank Brennan is going to ask, but he's going to try to use that. And it's smart. If you guys, the chat, all have a question and you feel like you can answer it as a lawyer and Hank Brennan feels like he can answer it, this was smart to do. Now, Alan Jackson had, I think, the reason a lot of you were asking that question. He comes back on Recross and gets his answer out. But here's Hank Brennan's explanation for what the condition of the jeans are currently.
As part of your investigation and the significance of the evidence, did you consider any debris on the back of the pants as part of your analysis?
Yes, the grass stains on the left, the appearance of the
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
the appearance of the staining that's taken place or had taken place on these jeans was significant in the fact that it appears to be green and grass stain.
What did that suggest to you as part of your evaluation of your investigation and the decisions that you made after?
It suggests that Mr. O'Keefe impacted the grass area with his left glute, transferring green staining onto his pants.
Great explanation. But basically, so now we're getting, he didn't just get hit, maybe take a step and then fall. He didn't just get hit, pirouette and then fall. He didn't get hit, trip on the curb and fall. He had to get hit with enough force for his body to slide on the grass. If I'm the defense, I am using this with ARCA. How much force would it take for a 6'1", 210-pound man to be slid across the grass? And frankly, I think they should be able to, if they haven't asked ARCA that question, they should be able to ask him that question. Do some testing. Do some testing. What kind of force does it take to make a grass stain? Because this is a new opinion by Mr. Expert Yuri Buchanan, grass stain expert, medical expert, expert in if people are acting suspicious. I would absolutely use that if I was the defense. Now, he didn't talk about the rip pocket. Maybe that was done when they were cutting off the jeans or taking them off him to, apply medical attention to him.
Are you or do you know from your investigation the amount of snow that was on the ground at about 12:32:09 to 12:32:12 on January 29th of 2022?
Yes, based on my investigation and review of video from surveillance footage, it appears to be very little to a coating of snow in some areas.
You could repackage that for us, please?
Yes, sir.
All right. That was the end of that section. But then what Hank Brennan decided to end his redirect on, I actually thought was a pretty good question. You look through Higgins. First off, Higgins' phone matched Karen Reed's and John O'Keefe's. Yeah, so all the nefarious problems, it's like that was no big deal. It's like, except maybe that little phone call that was made outside of Canton PD. But I thought it was a pretty good question. He's like, so you look through John O'Keefe and Brian Higgins' phone conversations, you look through their texts. Did you see a motive? Were they fighting? Were they angry at each other? Were there any issues? Did you see a motive at all? And he said no. And that was the end of redirect. And I thought that wasn't a bad redirect, but I thought it opened the door for an amazing first recross question. You just testified that you know the content of John O'Keefe and Brian Higgins' text messages because you just said you looked through it all and there was no motive, right? You said that. So now you can't say you don't know what the content of these text messages are. You can't say I've got to take a break so you can read all the text messages. So obviously you can't do that big windup, but that's what I'd be thinking. Did Brian Higgins tell John O'Keefe that he wanted Karen Reed? That he and Karen Reed kissed? That they had been flirting? That he wanted her that night? He wanted her attention. He was trying to text her? That she had ghosted him? Did he say that in his text messages to John O'Keefe? No, you didn't find any of that in there? So I think it's safe to say that Brian Higgins did not share the entire truth of what he was thinking and feeling in the text messages with John O'Keefe. Would you agree with that? He would have to agree with that. That's how I would have started Recross. Because I think it shatters what Hank Brennan thought was a very strong point for him. Then he talks about, where did you interview Brian Higgins? At his lawyer's house with his lawyer. And I'm not one to hate on somebody having a lawyer there. But when you're a witness in a case like this and you're going to try to make it look bad, is what it is, right? Is what it is. Especially when Buchanan's like, there was no reason for his lawyer to be there. It's like, yeah, not that you know. That's what I would say. Like, you don't know of any reason to have a lawyer there. And you knew you weren't going to arrest him because he's your buddy, right? We'll listen to a little bit of the redirect.
One of the last to arrive. So they didn't step outside together, right?
They didn't step outside, but once he was invited, according to your narrative, wouldn't they have a discussion outside where he was invited to come out?
So, Mr. Jackson, I just want to ask you, how much longer?
Not long. I can finish this up if you give me 10.
So she did this multiple times, and it's just annoying. Either cut it off for the day, or, but also I think Jackson opened himself up to it. He said 10 minutes. I think he went maybe a little bit over 10 minutes, but just come back the next day. I know you don't want to. You want to be done with this witness. I understand all of that, but you really have to take your time with this, right? And if he had more, I wish he would have done it, but I think he did his job here with this witness.
Probably 10 minutes.
Okay. Jurors are saying yes. Is it okay with all the jurors? We usually break it for.
I don't want to overstep. I'm happy to stop now, but I think I can get finished.
I'd like to finish with this witness and not have to go back again tomorrow.
Thank you, Your Honor. I appreciate the accommodation. You're aware that, according to the tape, John O'Keefe left about 10 minutes after Brian Higgins, or so.
I'll take your word for it.
Okay. You would agree, as a homicide investigator, not every death starts off as an intended murder, correct?
I will agree to that.
Sometimes a fight could go wrong, and you intend to fight and duke it out. Something goes wrong, something goes south, someone dies, correct?
Objection.
So that's something that you can always be honest about. So, another one.
So objection sustained, but he got that theory in front of the jury, right? Joanne, I don't know. Michelle, slide across the grass on your butt after you first take 36 steps. Maybe the bruise on John O'Keefe's hand was from somebody holding on to it while they dragged him. Also, your head has to hit the ground a certain way to cause that skull fracture. So can you slide on your butt before hitting your head that way? I don't know. Jackson finished with Yuri. Yeah, he's not coming back. He is done. He is off the stand. Then he goes into the inconsistencies of the taillight, crack, break, how many pieces are missing. He asks him if he tested the grass stain. Of course he didn't, because they don't do that kind of an investigation. Yuri Buchanan admits that he didn't know Brian Higgins went to the Canton PD. They talk a little bit about, are you aware of the step data, things like that. And we're going to listen to just a couple more minutes here of Recross, and then we'll be done.
Belonging to Mr. O'Keefe just a second ago.
Yes.
And you noted that on his, what would be his left rear pocket, there was a stain.
Yes.
You said that was an apparent grass stain, and it was green.
Based on my observation here holding them, that's what it appeared. Yes. Maybe dirt, maybe other substances.
That was my question. did you seek to analyze what that discoloration was from, or have caused that to be analyzed by crime lab or anybody else?
The genes were processed. I don't know what their protocol is to analyze it. They process those genes. There's pieces missing from cuttings and stuff like that.
Understood. So as you sit here, you have no evidence at all that those are grass stains, correct?
Strictly my experience of knowing grass stains and observing it.
Could be dirt,
Could be.
could be oil or grease.
I don't know about that, but
They look brown. Stains look brown, wouldn't they?
there's different parts of the stain. Some has brown, some has green, different parts of it.
Could you get, in your experience, stains on the back of pants from being dragged?
I've never dragged anybody, so from my experience, I can't tell you.
Once again, just say yes. Very clearly, just say yes. You have just explained that your buttock hitting the ground on the left side or whatever. It's like, yeah, of course. Yeah, you can get it from being dragged, slide, you know what? Just say yes. That's so simple. That's frustrating. If I am the lawyer and he's my witness, I'd be like, brother, just say yes. I am going to prove it was not being dragged. I'm going to eliminate that reasonable doubt as a prosecutor. Just say yes. You're killing me with quibbling over semantics.
I didn't ask if you've ever dragged anybody. You've never murdered anybody either. It's your homicide investigator, right?
Good point.
Did you get those stains from being dragged? It's just a common sense question.
My common sense dictates that it was not a drag, a mark, because it would have linear characterizations, and it would be both buttocks that are engaged in contact with the ground while being dragged.
Or if you were being dragged and you had something to top it, or being dragged at an angle. Being dragged through a crease spot. It was only on the left. What about all those possibilities?
Again, my opinion, common sense dictates it was not the case.
But you certainly didn't take any action to investigate forensically what those stains actually were.
I did not know.
By the way, can you lose a shoe from being dragged?
It depends. I guess you can, depending on how loose it is.
You said that there was no information that you had regarding Brian Higgins and John O'Keefe having any animosity toward each other prior to January 29th, 2022, correct?
Correct.
But you did, now let's talk about on January 29th, 2022. In your experience, does drinking alcohol increase the likelihood or increase the possibility?
And this is kind of an interesting conversation, right? About what Jackson uses, but Yuri Buchanan, he kind of steps in it when he helps Jackson find the words he's looking for. Jackson's been crossing this guy for like 3 days, right? So much going on. You brain fart so often. It's like when I talk about when I say stuff or miss stuff on this, it's like Jackson couldn't get the right words out, but Yuri Buchanan helps him out and proves he knows what Jackson's talking about.
Of getting into an altercation?
I would say, in my experience, in my opinion, the alcohol could become a social lubricant and exacerbate emotions. But to speak in a definitive form here, I can't.
You've heard of beer muscles. That's a common phrase, right?
Never heard that before, no.
Beer guts? Ever heard that one?
I've heard of beer gut, but not beer guts.
Having the guts to walk up to someone you might not otherwise walk up to in a bar because you've had too much to drink. Is that what beer muscles could mean?
I would say maybe liquid courage.
Even better. What does liquid courage mean?
Giving you courage that truly shouldn't be there.
That you might not otherwise have if you weren't drinking.
Yeah. Yes.
Can we wrap this up, Mr. Johnson?
I'm trying, Judge. I won't be much longer. You had evidence that Brian Higgins had.
We all know what that means. I think that came out exactly how Jackson wanted it to. Can the defense bring up the audit at all? No, I don't expect that to come up at all. Texas Tooth Fairy, can Proctor plead the fifth? Not on stuff he's already testified to. We've been over this a couple times. So there's always an it depends. Certain questions, he might be able to plead the fifth. There's something new or something different, but generally no. Michelle, I wonder if J.O. could have been hit by Higgins' snowplow. I don't see how the evidence is there for that. Like, I feel like his injuries would look very different if he was hit by a huge snowplow. Rihanna, Peter, do you think that the jury's thoughts are on Buchanan basically speaking for Proctor and Higgins and why the Commonwealth isn't calling him? That's what mine would be. I think it depends on how the jurors think, but logically, I think that's on point. Marie, Peter, what was the point of Higgins going to the police station anyway? Great point. I have no, he explains it in a way that's also suspect. Like, he does not make me think, yeah, that makes sense why you would have gone to the police station. And if the Commonwealth doesn't call him, he's never going to explain it. So jury's left wondering. LK, how often are people killed by a car in reverse? What was John O'Keefe's alcohol level? Not to get out of the way. Was there any salt determined to be on the taillight pieces? So I don't know a lot of these answers. It hasn't come up or come out yet in trial. So we'll keep watching to see if some of it comes out, but obviously less often than getting hit from the front. I have never had somebody that got hit from behind and died. I have had a lot of cases, obviously, where a pedestrian gets hit in the front, very seriously injured or even died. Chiricity. Wouldn't a drag and a slide be pretty similar? He's combating his own theory. I agree. Kenzie, Peter, I was amazed at how my opinion of 12 Angry Men I changed after learning what I've learned from watching you. Stuff they did that they shouldn't. Absolutely. It's good for entertainment, not really good for the process. Loving tonight. Thank you from the UK. Well, we are winding it down, Lingo, so I'm glad you're here. Taylor, he just said common sense aligns with his point of view. Could this open the door for the defense to call their FBI expert? No, unfortunately, that wouldn't be enough. There's other things. I've already said this. We knew the testimony was going to come out that was going to make that expert necessary, and the judge still said no. So she obviously doesn't agree with the way we would look at it. Welcome to all the new members. That's the end of Yuri Buchanan. We finally get a different witness. Sue Boston 10, jury wanted to stay to hear AJ finish. Yes, I did see that. I saw the judge ask them, and they said yes. But that's all we got tonight. John O'Rourke sends us out with some steak money. I am starving. It's 6:15. What's your favorite restaurant? Try Il Luso in Tallahassee. Is that what you're asking what my favorite restaurant is? I got so many favorites. I love Gordo's. I love California Chicken Grill. I love One Stir Fry's gone. I loved Po' Boys. That's gone. I love Hobbit Hoagies. You guys let me know your favorite restaurants in Tallahassee if you, in fact, have it. And I'm going to that NCAA golf tournament tomorrow. If any of you guys are going, let me know. Would love to see you there. Would love to say what's up. I'm pumped. Thank you, John, so much for buying us dinner tonight. You guys all hit the like button, subscribe, all that stuff. You're the best. I appreciate you. Until next time, I am out of here. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. And don't forget to check out the Lawyer You Know podcast with new seasons dropping every quarter. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.